Okay, let's talk about planes, anatomical planes, and anatomical directions, which are super important terms. One of the reasons why I want to make this video. So hopefully you will go over these terms in lab. Some of you may not have lab, which is a good reason why I'm making this video, but also hopefully I'll be able to explain some of these concepts and clarify some misconceptions that might arise. So let's start with planes of the body. In any three-dimensional space, there's always three mutually orthogonal or perpendicular planes. So in a human, these planes are the sagittal plane, which is a cut like this through my body. There's one special sagittal plane called the mid-sagittal plane, and a cut right down my body like this will divide my body into a right half and a left half. And these two halves are mirror images because my body is bilaterally symmetrical. Okay. Second plane is a frontal plane. A frontal plane is any cut through my body like this. Okay. There is no special frontal plane. There's an infinite number of frontal planes as we go from back to forward, right? But no special one because my body is not symmetric along that axis. The third plane is a transverse plane, and a transverse plane is any cut through a body like this, including through a limb, all right? And again, infinite number of transverse planes, none of them are special, all right? We refer to a drawing of a body along one of these planes as a section, so we might have a sagittal section or a frontal section or a transverse section. And I drew a transverse section of the abdomen in the last lecture, and I'm going to make this drawing a lot. So I'll draw it again. A transverse section, cut right through here, is vertebral column, spinal cord, aorta, gut, peritoneal cavity. Okay? So sagittal, frontal, transverse. As I just said, the sagittal plane is important because the mid-sagittal plane divides our body into a right and a left half. And right and left are important anatomical terms. Right and left are always from the perspective of the object. Okay? So this is my right eye, this is my left eye. This is my right thorax, this is my left thoracic wall. My right abdominal wall, my left abdominal wall. My right hand, my left hand. Okay. When we talk about directions, we define these directions with respect to a reference. And the reference is called the anatomical position. And this is me in the anatomical position. I'm standing up, my upper limbs are just hanging down, and importantly, my palms are facing forward. Okay? So the first set of directions. Is anterior versus posterior. If we take a frontal section of me, anything in front of that is anterior to anything behind that section. Okay, so anterior is toward the front, posterior is toward the back, right? And we use anterior and posterior for the head, the neck, the trunk, lower limb, upper limb, for most of the body. Superior, inferior. Superior and inferior typically applied to the head, neck, and trunk. Yeah, they can sometimes be applied to the limbs. We have other terms for the limbs as well. But let's talk about what superior and inferior is. If we make a transverse section, anything above that section is going to be superior to everything below that section. All right, superior is toward the head, superior is toward the head, inferior is toward the tail or toward the feet. All right, so my head is superior to my thorax. My thorax is superior to my abdomen. So notice that anterior and posterior are relative terms, superior and inferior are relative terms. All of these directional terms are relative, meaning that my thorax isn't superior, it's only superior relative to something else. My thorax is superior relative to my abdomen, but it's inferior relative to my head. Okay? Medial versus lateral. All right, if we take a mid-sagittal section, medial is toward that section and lateral is away from that section. All right, so my upper limb is lateral to my thoracic wall and it's lateral to my abdominal wall, right? My ear is lateral to the side of my lip, right? Medial, my side of my lip is medial to my ear. Side of my lip is medial. That's weird. Side of my lip is medial to my ear. Okay. Super importantly, when we talk about here's where anatomic position comes in and the limbs. Given that medial is toward the medial plane, the mid-sagittal plane, lateral is away from that mid-sagittal plane. Which is medial? My thumb, which is medial? My thumb or my pinky? A lot of students will say the thumb is medial, and that is incorrect. It looks like it's medial when I'm presenting myself like this, because my thumb is closer to my mid-sagittal plane than my pinky, right? But like I said, we define all of these terms relative to the anatomical position. And when I'm in the anatomical position, my thumb is lateral to my pinky, right? That never changes. It doesn't matter. You could cut my arm off and just put it on an operating table. The thumb is always lateral to the pinky, all right? We could say that we can also use this for something like superior and inferior. My head, if we think of superior is up and inferior is down, right? That works pretty well when I'm in an anatomical position. My head is up relative to, say, my pelvis. But what if I'm hanging upside down from a tree? Now my head is below my pelvis. So is my head inferior to my pelvis if I'm hanging upside down from a tree limb? No. The head is always superior to the pelvis, no matter what the body orientation is, because superior is defined by the body in one orientation, and that's the anatomical position. And in this position, the head is above the pelvis. Okay? You can't see my feet, but is the big toe medial or lateral to the pinky toe, right? When I present myself in anatomical position, you can't see my feet, but your feet are always in, essentially, the anatomical position, and the big toe is medial to the pinky toe, to the little toe. The little toe is lateral to the big toe. All right, proximal versus distal. Proximal and distal is used a lot in the limbs or any kind of elongate structure. So my proximal is toward the origin of that structure, and distal's away from the origin of that structure. So my elbow is distal to my shoulder, but my elbow is proximal to my wrist. My wrist is distal to my elbow,